Hello there. So I am carrying on from the last video where I was discussing the bricks in the wall structure in the village with the fairies and pixies, and we're discussing the fictional novel. So the last question I asked in the last video was regarding the bricks in the wall gathering. Is it a threat to the village? And the 9 answered that. And the next question I asked is about the You Ess Domain. So my question was, will this play out as in everything in the last video? So please go and watch that if you haven't seen it yet, so that you can catch up with where we are. Will this play out, this scenario play out in the You Ess Domain only? Or will this play out across the entire village in all domains? And the 9 replied, this is a village agenda, a whole village agenda. However, the You Ess Domain is at the very core. The overlords know that the You Ess Domain is the hardest nut to crack, if you will. Therefore, the focus will be upon cracking that nut, and thus the You Ess Domain. Yet, as we have said, the village, yet as we have said, the agenda is full village, which would be similar to global in our waking world and not in a fictional novel. And then they say in this particular movement regarding the bricks in the wall and the potential for the breakaway aspects to that and the innovations that will be created, they said in the village it is the Germanic domain that leads the way. So when it comes to the You Ess Domain, if you want to pop over to the video that I uploaded a few days ago, which is entitled no, I don't, hang on, where's the title? Quantum Structure, Village Economy 2024, Marina and Gloria chat. So if you go there, you will be directed to the Rumble nightclub where Gloria Love talks with Marina the Mermaid, and they discuss more about the You Ess Domain. Why is that the hardest nut to crack? Well, there are many reasons for that, and a lot of it is to do with the You Ess Domain economic structure and the power that the penny, that the little penny that the You Ess Domain fairies have, which they call a dollar, that has some kind of power. As I said in the last video, I'm literally completely clueless when it comes to actual finance. I don't have a clue. I'm only bringing forward what the 9 have said. But if you go back to that chat with Marina the Mermaid, we talk about this more. And one of the reasons why the You Ess Domain is the hardest nut to crack isn't just because of the little pennies that look like a dollar with those fairies. It's also to do with the competition structures and the parties people have around that competition structure, that which we call Top Banana, the gnome in the village we know as Stormfire Gnome, and everything that's going on there is all tied up with this village economic overlord agenda, because it's all tied in together. If the Stormfire Gnome were to find himself or achieve a competition win and move into the banana prize, this would totally stop the overlord agenda in this economic sense within the You Ess Domain and thus the rest of the village. And it's more than that. It's more than just the economic, because Stormfire Gnome is a genius when it comes to business. That's why there's so much more there. It's so complex. I've spoken about this before, but it is all tied in, and it is something that is in the fields for the play out within the 3rd dimension. And there are multiple playouts that mirror that in the fourth dimension and the fifth in a dimensional sense. So yes, they said in this particular movement, so this is the bricks in the wall movement and the innovation coming out from it, and those that go into the breakaway society, but the actual bricks in the wall structure itself, it's the Germanic domain that leads the way. So I said to the 9, the Germanic domain, but they're not part of the bricks in the wall structure, are they? So I didn't understand that, because as far as I'm aware, you know, when Marina the Mermaid wanted to talk about the bricks in the wall structure, I knew nothing about the bricks in the wall. I really don't understand it. I'm quite sort of I've got quite a block on finance, economy, and money. I have to be absolutely honest with you. But I did look up what the bricks in the wall structure was, and I looked at the different domains that are part of the bricks in the wall structure, and the Germanic domain's not there. So I said to the 9, why the Germanic? And they said, the presentation you see within your reality is an overlay or false presentation. So they're talking about the bricks in the wall structure itself. It's a false presentation. There's much occurring behind the scenes, if you will. The Germanic domain plays a pivotal role financially in both the false awakening, dark overlord agenda, and so too through a different faction, the true awakening and the light agenda. The financial bifurcation runs strong in the Germanic domain, but shall not be evident until closer towards the end of your current decade. So something is going on in the Germanic domain that's really powerful. So we've got this You Ess Domain, and there's lots there, and it's tied up with the whole banana field and Stormfire Gnome and the whole sort of structure within that banana field, the competition, beyond the competition, all tied up with the little pennies and the dollars in the village. But we've got something else going on with both false awakening and true awakening into the light in the Germanic domain, because each of the domains have the overlord structure in them and the light structure in them, because they're bifurcated. They have both. You can't just say that domain is controlled by the overlords. This domain is free. I mean, from what I know from the 9, there are potentially some very rare free domains. I don't know where they are at this point, but they are hidden at the moment. We can go into that another time perhaps, but something powerful is occurring in the Germanic domain, but this shall not be evident until closer towards the end of your current decade, so that this decade ends in 2030, so closer to 2029, 2028, 2027. I don't know what date it is, but it's not yet. It's in the future, but the seeds are there now. So I would, you know, keep an eye on the Germanic domain specific to the bricks in the wall. I mean, the 9 are saying that there's much occurring behind the scenes. What you see as a reality overlay, a false presentation. So could the Germanic domain already be in some way connected to the bricks in the wall structure? The 9 also said, with these breakaway societies and new innovations, the bricks in the wall structure wouldn't be bricks in the wall anymore. It would be something else. So this is something that is ongoing. That doesn't mean that's a bad thing, but the whole movement within this shift right now, this 2012 time period, the bifurcation, the trifurcation, it takes time. So this is something that will unfold. So that's what they said. Anyway, next question. Will there be a collapse of the pennies and the little coins we call dollars in the You Ess domain? Will this structure that we use when we use pennies and dollars, that economic structure, is this going to collapse in the US domain? And the 9 said, we can say to you that the US market, the US markets, just let me add, I know nothing about the markets. I don't really know what they are, how they work, nothing about them. We can say to you that the US markets will take a nosedive. I don't know what that means, but obviously when this came through, I did look it up, and it is a term used by those who work in the markets. We can say to you that the US domain markets will take a nosedive, and they showed me this graph going down like that. There shall be economic downturn in the US domain, and this indeed affects the majority of your Western countries. The Israel domain shall step in as the giant here, in play with strategies and rescue plan, with both false and true awakening superimposed within. So I'm interpreting this as, and you probably, if you're financially au fait, you'll probably understand this more than me, but there's going to be some kind of economic downturn, some kind of situation in the US domain affecting the majority of Western countries, and Israel domain is going to step in and have some kind of strategy or rescue plan, and within that there'll be false awakening, as in, hey, we can rescue you, but there's also true awakening, real awakening superimposed within that, as in a real genuine assistance. So that's what the 9 said there. They went on to say, that which appears to be so is not so, and much is false presentation, wizard behind the curtain illusion. So fairly explanatory. That which appears to be the case isn't the case. I mean, anyone following the truth movement and anyone following this entire shift, we know that's the case. That which appears to be so is not so. And much is false presentation. We know that too. But they are speaking specifically about pennies and dollars and economies in the village. Wizard behind the curtain illusion. So wizard behind the curtain illusion is, in my understanding, presenting something to be grand and powerful and strong and far bigger and more important than you are. You know, it's like a Goliath presentation. The wizard behind the curtain is all powerful, but wizard behind the curtain really means that he wasn't that at all. If you look in the Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy pulls the curtain back, he's just a man. So that's what this is. It isn't what it's being shown to be, this grand, big, hey, you know, this is huge. No, it's not at all. All of that is smoke and mirrors. It's an act, it's an illusion in the village, in the fictional novel. The 9 went on to say, however, the real is also engineered, so that those who cannot see through and beyond the veils do witness the Armageddon program play out before their very eyes. And this shall be most challenging for these individuals. So I have discussed this already. If you go back to the video, Village Economy Overlord and Breakaway, no, that's not the right one. Sorry, Energetic Looping Back, 3 years in Time, Christ Consciousness Override. That explains this situation in that video. The real is also engineered, so that those who cannot, so as in what's real, what's actual, is being engineered as well. So we've got the false and the real is being engineered, and that's explained in that video. So that those who cannot see through and beyond the veils, those in this group of those who do not see the true reality and do not understand or hear the true narrative, beyond the veils do witness the Armageddon program play out before their eyes. So that's what I was meaning in that previous video about them thinking, the new village order is here. It's here. You know, how can you deny it's not here? It's there. That's what they will think. This shall be most challenging for these individuals. These individuals are, these fairies in the village are repeating in a loop, and the loop's going round and round and round. So what they're going to see very soon, and it's the end of August, beginning of September, what they're going to see very soon is a looping back to what went before. As explained in that video, energetic looping back 3 years in time, Christ consciousness override. The other video is village economy, overlord, and breakaway structures into trifurcation. Those two explain all this. And also the video with Gloria Love and Marina the Mermaid, when they speak at the Rumble nightclub, they are also discussing this, and that brings into play Marina the Mermaid's perspective on this using her model. So this shall be most challenging for these individuals. However, the nosedive, so this nosedive of the US markets does not hit the floor and does not bottom out or tank, as it were. I don't use these words, so it's interesting that the 9 have used this terminology. I guess this is terminology used by those in that world. So the nosedive does not hit the floor and bottom out or tank, as it were. So my question is, will there be a collapse of the pennies and the dollars in the US domain? So the answer here is no. So it's going to look like it is because of the nosedive, but the answer is no, because it doesn't hit rock bottom. It doesn't tank. It doesn't hit the floor. So a nosedive doesn't actually end up in a collapse or a crash. The nosedive does not hit the floor and bottom out or tank, as it were, for the business executor for the light and his team step into the fore and present real solution. Okay, so the 9 haven't really given me much of a clue as to who the business executor for the light is and his team. Is this the Starseed consciousness that's the business executor? Is this someone else or some other group? My gut feeling is that what the 9 mean here, and they don't tell me everything, they leave me to work things out for themselves, for myself, and you for yourself. That's why I do these analysis videos, because it isn't always easy to work out what the 9 mean, but I think they are talking about Stormfire Gnome. I think. I'm not 100% sure. The business executor, I do think they're talking about Stormfire. Business executor for the light and his team. I do think that the business executor for the light is Stormfire. His team, I do not think his team is the red team, the team that hold the red squares. I think his team is a hidden team that is more connected to the 17 birds rather than the red squares. That's what I am thinking here. But you interpret what you think the 9 means. The nosedive does not hit the floor and bottom out or tank, as it were, for the business executor for the light and his team step into the fore and present real solution. Now, how Stormfire could do that without being top banana, I do not know, but that's not what I asked the 9. I didn't say how. I'm just being told that that's what occurs. And I could be wrong. The business executor for the light could be something or someone else. I'm thinking it's literally Stormfire, but I am not 100% sure. They went on to say the people on the ground are the ones here with the power. So they're talking about the fairies. The fairies and the elves in the village are the ones with the power. And the false Armageddon template in the village only serves to trigger more awakening. So this, oh, look, it's the new village order. It's here. That triggers more awakening within that structure of people that think, hang on a minute, this doesn't make sense. And they'll start adding things up, and more people will leave this structure that do not see through the veils, and they will begin to move in their awakening. Everyone's going through an awakening in some form, and they will shift. So this is why there's a trifurcation, because there's a degree of consciousnesses in different stages of awakening. So the Fae on the ground are the ones here with the power. So that's the fairies and the elves in the village. That's the villagers. That's you and me. We're the villagers in this novel, in this fictional novel. This is the people of the world, the fairies of the village. All the same thing in fiction. The fairies on the ground are the ones here with the power. And the false Armageddon template only serves to trigger more awakening. This that you question us about, which is, let's go back to it. Will there be a collapse of the pennies and the dollars in the US domain in the village? This that you question us about is but one thread within the Overlord agenda. This is not the only play out. The economic is but one stream of several streams that shall all move in time as one to prevent the false Armageddon. Okay, so my question, will there be a collapse in the US domain of the pennies and the dollars? That's just one play out of a whole stream. And these are outside of the economic. So there's the economic streams and there's other streams. And they're going to move at the same time to prevent the false Armageddon. So there'll be a false Armageddon because that's evident that these individuals are seeing it, but that's because they're seeing an illusion and believing it and creating it for themselves individually. When we look overall, there is no false Armageddon. I mean, there's a false Armageddon in the sense of it's not real, but when we look overall, that is all illusion. There isn't that energy is not there in reality. If you go back and listen to the videos I mentioned and the one between Marina the Mermaid and Glory Love, we do talk about this. I do question them more on this because I wasn't quite sure what they were saying about all move in time as one to prevent the false Armageddon. So I said, when you say false Armageddon, do you mean the fairies will believe Armageddon is here, but it won't be here? And that's what I assume it means. And the 9 said, false Armageddon is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I did speak about this with Marina the Mermaid. It therefore may well be actual Armageddon for those who take this reality into their paradigm as truth. However, they shall create it for themselves. So for those individuals, it's real, but it wasn't created. It was created by the individuals, by those fairies who believed what they saw, who believed the illusion and created something real from it within themselves. And as I said, I do discuss this with Marina, and she gives her perspective using her model, which is very, very different to the model the 9 teach me. Complementary, but vastly different in explanation and in terminology. I will say one thing about Marina and myself, or rather about what we do when we get together. I present a paradigm. It is a formulated model that the 9 have taught me as to how I see and perceive this whole play out. The 2012 movement, the shift, the ascension, Earth movement into Gaia, or whatever you want to call it. It's a structure and it's whole and complete. So if you're used to following me and my model, then your mind, your brain will have mapped that model, and then you'll have your own model within that will be moving in a complementary sense. Putting that to one side, you've then got Marina coming in with also a paradigm and a structure and a model completely explaining the same thing. These two paradigms are looking at the same structure and presenting the same truth outcomes, but they're using a very different mindset. It's very challenging for the human brain to look at two paradigms. However, it's a great exercise in expansion, because if you're able to hold one paradigm and then understand, you wouldn't live within the paradigm of someone else. If you're listening to my paradigm, your paradigm is paramount. But if mine's complementary to you, you will feel a flow. You won't feel any kind of difficulty or challenge or resistance when you listen to me. You'll feel that's in alignment with my paradigm. If you listen to me and you do feel a difficulty and a challenge, likely you're not watching, or maybe you are and you're trying to look at that. What that means is that my paradigm is just a little bit further away from yours. The reason why the 9 present this paradigm is it's one that's very close to the collective of starseeds and the one that they follow. Not all of the collective. With Marina, it's a very different paradigm. So if you are flowing with that paradigm when you listen to Marina speak, that's because it's close to you, and you're likely to be quite logical, scientific, like a lot of diagrams, geometry, because that's kind of where she's coming from. And there is an explanation within more of a right-brained presentation there as well. It's just very different. If you are someone who looks at my paradigm and Marina's paradigm put together, and they're both flowing and you're seeing them both clearly, then what's happened with you is you're balancing templates, and you are able to view two paradigms while still holding your own. That's great. If you are looking at us both and it's a bit confusing and a bit of a struggle to get your mind around two paradigms, then that's understandable. And that's what happens. It's hard enough to hold one paradigm. Most people, I won't say most, many people do not have a paradigm. They haven't been able to create the structure within their mind to create a cohesive reality for themselves. When they do, everything holds clarity. Then to look at another completely different paradigm using totally different structures, diagrams, methods, that can be very challenging to hold. But it's a really good exercise in expansion, because when you can hold two paradigms and see them both and understand them both, then you have expansion of mind in balance. So I continue to use my paradigm. I'm not able to, let's say, and I wouldn't say just Marina, it's just Marina's got a very strong paradigm. I wouldn't be able to communicate with someone with that strong a paradigm on a daily basis, because I would think, gosh, this is a huge download for me to see both paradigms day in, day out. But on a regular basis, maybe, I don't know, once a week, once a month, however, I'm able to shift into that point and see both the paradigms and actually communicate with someone that has a different paradigm and understand that paradigm and use that for communication. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you feel that it's quite strange and confusing and a bit uncomfortable listening to me talking to someone else with a completely different paradigm, and to you, you might think, gosh, these people are nothing like one another. That's quite normal in spiritual awakening. Your paradigm is taking you into a certain place, and it isn't right for you at that point to open up to another one. But if you're okay with the two, if you see it as complementary, you're just moving into a new, they're just different geometries. One is not better than the other. I'm talking about holding one paradigm or holding two. The idea here is for you to have your paradigm and to choose what is your structure that gives you clarity. Then you can listen to me, Marina, and a whole host of other people, and you'll be able to work out whether they have a paradigm at all, whether they're just speaking in, let's say, a creative flow without holding a structure, which is, when I say paradigm, it's a belief system. It's a myriad of infinite belief systems that have created a presentation of cohesion within the individual. Some people don't have that. They just move with flowing, poetic, colorful, high vibrational language, but they don't see it in a paradigm. You'll be able to tell the difference between someone who has a paradigm, someone who is flowing in balance, someone who's distorted, someone whose paradigm is distorted. You will be able to tell. And looking at different paradigms is a good exercise. What I would say is if it's making you feel very, very challenged, move away from that. It's not right for you yet. Come back to it. Come back to it in a month, 3 months, 6 months. There's no right or wrong when it comes to awakening that genius flow within the mind. There is no right or wrong way to do this when you're in this ascension path. But Stargate Ascension, which is also accelerated ascension, to see these 2 paradigms and potentially more, is all part of the journey, because you are moving into omnipresence, which is taking each paradigm as a compartmentalized, infinite structure of cohesive thought and merging them. And that's what Marina means when she says collapsing timelines, to move into one timeline. That's not language the 9 particularly use. They do talk about the implosion of structures and the implosion of timelines, or even dimensional implosion, moving towards the singularity. It's the same thing. Anyway, back to this dialogue. When you say false Armageddon template, you mean people will believe Armageddon is here in the village, in the fictional novel, but it won't be. False Armageddon is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It therefore may well be actual Armageddon for those who take this reality into their paradigm as truth. However, they shall create it for themselves. An Armageddon program is just like the polar opposite, the Paradise program. They are but presentations to take into one's paradigm. The creation of the experiential reality of either Armageddon or Paradise is down to the individual. So this is how you look at reality. Are you over here and seeing the one village takeover? Are you over here and seeing New Earth? You're over here seeing the one village takeover and seeing an Armageddon program. You're over here and seeing New Earth and a Paradise program. And it goes into your experiential reality. You will experience it. This is what Marina and myself were talking about. So in this view of Armageddon, you have proof that it's here, because every time you make a phone call, step out the door, have a conversation with anyone, turn the television on, open a book, whatever you do, you are constantly getting proof that the one village takeover is here, that the Armageddon program is here. It's all around you in your dreams. That's how all-consuming it is when you take a belief system and you subscribe to it fully. So those who are outside of that, you need to, I won't say you need to, you don't need to. I would suggest that you understand this when you are dealing with your family. Now, you will have seen some of this already in the last 3 years of the novel being written. You will have seen that in previous chapters, but there's more to come of seeing that regarding different things and similar things and recycling of things and new presentations, and however this goes, however they want to play out that chess, that interdimensional chess game, if you will. Take into account that creation and the proof that's coming for those individuals. Your words are nothing next to the phone call they just had, or the altercation they just had down the street with someone, or the program they watched on TV, or the news report they heard, or the dream they had. And this is the thing, it's fourth dimensional, especially when you move into a negative synchronicity. So your dream mirrors what you saw on the television or in something you read in a book. You're getting powerful proof, but that's coming from a fourth dimensional hijacked structure. That's the AI structure that Marina and myself talk about. So your words won't get through. They have to have a triggered awakening experientially themselves and feel it in their heart and start to get higher dimensional synchronicity. And then they can switch over here to the Paradise program. So it's down to the individual how to take that into your reality. You choose that. Someone asked me earlier today, you're talking about these different structures, but how do you get from the Armageddon structure into Paradise? You're not giving solutions. Well, this is the work the 9 have been doing since I got online in 2008. Every video, every book gives you the tips to do this. I couldn't teach it more if I tried. So somewhere you have just not seen the teaching. The solutions are all within you. So it isn't really a teaching of solutions. It's catalysts to your own inner teachers. That's been the goal of the 9 since I got online in 2008. It's been the goal of the 9, or the agenda of the 9, or the reason the 9 are here since well before I got online. And I didn't even know this myself until quite far on in making the videos, because it's a learning curve for me. I didn't know the reason why the 9 were here right in the very beginning. So if you still don't know how to jump from a perceived Armageddon template program into the Paradise program, then, you know, go back, read my book, Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame. Read this one as well. This absolutely has everything in it to assist you with that. If you don't not resonate, if you don't quite understand those books, or you can't really take them into your experiential thinking, then start with the very, very first one, which is buried down here, Masters of the Matrix. That's the first one. This allows you to have mastery over your energetic system. This will give you the foundational template to then be able to go further. But that one book is a complete teaching in and of itself. You can do all of this without reading any of the others. Masters of the Matrix will give you the foundation to have a cohesive matrix structure, which is the geometry for your paradigm, and it's using 6th dimensional and 5th dimensional imagery to allow you to be aware of that structure. You then move on to divine architecture and the Starseed template, which allows you to construct the structure. It's just deeper work, deeper understanding. So to those who say, what are the solutions to this? How do you jump from this reality to this reality? Why have you not given solutions, Magenta? Well, the solutions have been there since the minute I got online. That's been the whole aim, is to give, I wouldn't say solutions. It's not solutions. It's catalysts, triggers, presentations in the form of codes for you to take in, and then the solutions come within from you. That's how it works. But sometimes within that, suggestions are made. For example, in the recent Blue Moon channeling, the 9 were talking about how to ground the magical work in hyperspace within the Crystal Palace with the crystal. So you work in both realms. So the you in the 5th dimension walks into the Crystal Palace, you know, let's say takes a little crystal in the Crystal Palace in your mind and places that within an altar, and then you do the same thing in the physical world. You do the 2. You ground that. There are many, many ways of doing that. So that's just one suggestion for a solution, but there are multiple ways. So this is what the 9 mean when they say the creation of the experiential reality of either Armageddon or Paradise is down to the individual. It's down to the individual fairy or gnome or elf or sprite or leprechaun or goblin in the elemental realm, in the village, in the fictional fantasy fiction story. It's down to the individual. So, you know, which do you want to experience? So if you're over here in the paradise program and you're experiencing the paradise program, that doesn't mean you won't see the Armageddon, the false Armageddon. You won't see individuals experiencing it. You'll be bearing witness, but you won't be in it yourself. But it's not an opting out. It's not a burying your head in the sand. If you bury your head in the sand, you're in the Armageddon template. That won't take you to the paradise template, because that's a distortion to the integral balance and the cohesive structure and the sovereignty you need to go forward. So you can't just bury your head in the sand or do what's called spiritual bypassing. That just takes you back to the Armageddon program. You might think you're in 5D, but you won't be. You'll be in a false 5D because you haven't balanced and grounded and anchored that frequency. So you work on all those levels, which is why it's important to take time for silence, to go within and work on your own light, your inner light body, as well as take time to be outward, to be assisting others, helping others, talking to others, teaching others, healing others. Whatever it is you do, you find a balance between going inward and working on yourself and going outward and giving to others. And you know when to do that. If you're sick, ill, unwell, you go within. If you're pregnant, you go within. You are not in the phase of giving to others when you are pregnant. When you're pregnant, all your energy goes within to the womb and the nurturing of the baby. That's where your energy goes. All the knowing of reality all goes to nurture the child. When you're not pregnant and you're not ill and you're not sick and you're healthy and you have vibrant energy within, then you work with an energy flow to balance between going inward and presenting your teaching. And you have to pick your time. It's not an easy lesson to learn. And you can suffer burnout if you don't get that balance right. I think really this is an esoteric way of speaking about biorhythms, but biorhythms within the body are quantum and they go into other dimensions. So that's where you move when you are navigating through. If you do all that, you'll always be in the paradise program, because what you're doing is aligned with source frequency, the God self aspect. Okay, so the next question to the 9. So therefore, does it depend on the amount of fairies, pixies, gnomes, elves, that choose Armageddon or paradise as to which actually manifests throughout the village? As in our reality, that would be globally. Does it depend on the amount of fae who choose Armageddon or paradise as to which actually manifests globally across the village? And the 9 said, exactly. Now you are asking the aligned questions of import. So I then said to them, so were my previous questions about the bricks in the wall not important? And the 9 said, in an interdimensional or multidimensional sense, for the seeker of the way, they are not of the highest import. That which is of the highest import is the quest for personal sovereignty and the ability to create, mold, and experience the reality you desire and wish for. When you do this at collective level, that is the reality experienced. So what they're saying to me here is, my question, does it depend on the amount of fairies that choose Armageddon or paradise as to which manifests right across the village? Exactly. Now you're asking an important question. Oh, was my last question about the bricks in the wall not important then? In an interdimensional, as in throughout the quantum field, throughout the quantum existence, or multidimensional, throughout all these multiple dimensional scales, for the seeker of the way, the individual who seeks to know truth and walks the path at the same time within the seeking of truth and lives within truth, They're not the highest import. Asking about the bricks in the wall, the pennies, the dollars, the economies, it's not the highest import in a multidimensional and interdimensional sense. That which is of the highest import, the most important question, is the quest. So quest as in the question, quest as in journey or path, that which you walk in your life, the quest for personal sovereignty and the ability to create, mold, and experience the reality you desire and wish for. That's the most important quest. And when you do this at collective level, so when multiple awakened individuals are all doing this, that's the reality experienced across the village. This is why the Armageddon template is false, because the reality experienced across the village is already this, because that's what the awakened individuals have been doing in the last 3 years in the novel, and many before that. But certainly in the last 3 years, knowing how important it was to create that higher vibrational state. So I then went on to ask them, is this why you say each individual will experience a different timeline? Is that what you mean when you say every single individual is experiencing a different timeline to the next person, the next fairy? And they said, exactly. So I said, what is the probability for the fairies to create the Armageddon or the Paradise timeline into a global presentation? What's the probability? So I'm repeating my question, really. I want to know, what's the full village play out going to be outside of this individualized timeline, outside of the creation? Is there anything else they can give me that's going to show me the full village play out? And they said, within those that begin to create and experience the Armageddon timeline, of which there will be many, there are those that experience the Armageddon reality as catalyst for the creation of the Paradise program. Therefore, the Armageddon acts as catalyst globally, and the probabilities for this are 99.9999%. So what they're saying here is, we can't have the awakening into the Paradise timeline without the polarized opposing presentation of the Armageddon program in the village, because it's acting as a catalyst. It's a village-wide, global, planetary-wide, village-wide, dimension. Well, it's not dimension-wide. No, it is dimension-wide, third dimension-wide catalyst. And the probabilities for this are 99.99999 recurring percent. So the probabilities of the Armageddon program acting as a catalyst for the Paradise program is 99.999, meaning it is a catalyst. It's set. 99.99999 is just a tiny bit under 100%, but nothing is 100% until it's actually occurred. So it's a catalyst. Does that mean it has to happen? Well, from the higher dimensional viewpoint, that's what's had to happen given the consciousness of all humanity, of all the fairies in the village. It's the creation. It's not that it had to happen from some outside force, like, oh, we are going to bestow upon you Armageddon, and we are going to bestow upon you Paradise, and you can choose which. No, no, no. It was us as a collective humanity for years and years and years. We brought the culmination of this to now. And if we want to move into the positive, highest timeline, then this presentation must play out. The catalyst must be provided in order for the moving into the Paradise, the moving into New Earth, the moving into the higher octave of Earth itself. From that perspective, it's ordained, if you will, or destiny. That's not the perspective from the third dimension. in the third dimension, this is an overlord agenda and a hijack. And I've spoken about this before, taking the different perspectives within the dimensions. So I went on to ask the nine, so are you saying that any economic downturn or perceived collapse or nosedive in the You Ess Domain or in any domain in the village is a catalyst for the great awakening of the Fae? And they replied, exactly, this is that which we are saying. So an economic downturn, a perceived economic collapse in the village amongst the fairies, a nosedive in the US markets, all of these are catalysts. That's what they're saying. Yes, that's what they're saying. So I then asked them, so even within the false Armageddon presentation, will the US domain economic pennies and dollars have a collapse? Even within the false Armageddon, will there be this collapse? Now, I know the nine have already answered that, but I asked them again, and I'm pretty sure that was the last. No, there's more questions. Okay. They said this would happen within a genuine Armageddon presentation only. So a US pennies and dollars, US domain pennies and dollars collapse, full collapse, would only happen in a genuine Armageddon presentation. That which you shall see is false presentation. Therefore, an appearance of potential collapse will be seen by those who do not see beyond the veils. Actual economic collapse within the village, within the US domain, may therefore be experienced by unanchored individuals who misinterpret and misperceive, helped along by your village media systems. So that's what they'll see. So they may actually experience an actual pennies and dollars collapse in the US domain, because that's what they're seeing. Yet in truth, there will be no such thing. There will be no economic collapse in the village with the fairies in the US domain. That's what they're saying. They say there shall be false presentations of savior program assistance and true presentation of real solution. And that was what I was saying in the last video, that was seeming to come in from Israel. Although they go on to say this plays out in the US domain first, then the West, and then the rest of the village. In each domain or country, the presentation may look different, with some domains or countries bypassing this play out entirely. So there is no economic situation in those domains. Some as false presentation. So some of these domains don't have an economic downturn as a false presentation. That's deliberately designed by the overlord structure to show perceived hope to other domains. And that perceived hope then acts as a control tool to the fairies and the gnomes and the elves. And some are really bypassing the economic downturn due to genuine solutions from the people at boots on the ground level, from the fairies at boots on the ground, grassroots level. So this is where what we're going into. And I have asked the nine. They did say back in 2020 that this wouldn't be evident until 2024. So that's 2024 is this pattern, is what I am assuming here. But as we're going into September 2023, October, November, December, it's kind of starting. That's what it appears. I don't have an actual timeline, but it's kind of like we're going into that now. And this plays out in 2024. So I asked them, for those who can see beyond the veil that manifest the paradise template, What will reality look like for these individuals at an economic level? What will the fairies and the pixies and the elves experience in their domains, in the village, that manifest the paradise template? What will it look like for them? And the 9 said, you speak here of the golden ones who hold riches beyond imagination. They will bear witness only, but they will not experience Armageddon. They will experience paradise. So all of that is kind of self-evident. No need for any analysis other than you speak here of the golden ones. So is that a spiritual terminology to describe these shining individuals with these abundant crystalline auras? Yes. Is this also bringing this down to the riches within the third dimension, as in gold? Is this golden as in alchemy within? Yes, I think it's all of these things. So there's a sort of clue about gold in there somewhere. This is something to do with the gold. As I said, I'm just not really I'm not great on actual 3D finance, so I'm doing the best I can to bring this forward. My next question was, is this what some people refer to as the quantum financial system? So we're talking about a quantum financial system in the village with the fairies and the pixies. Is this a village QFS for fairies and pixies? And the 9 said, and I've been wanting to ask them about this for a long time because I know that this has been talked about for the last 3 years in the novel. So I wanted to ask them about this. And they said, this too is bifurcated with both false and organic presentations of such. We would therefore refer to this as a quantum abundance system, but yes. So the answer to their question is yes. The golden ones who hold riches beyond their imagination, they will bear witness, but they will not experience Armageddon. They will experience paradise. This is what is referred to as the quantum financial system in the village, although that's bifurcated with both false presentation and true organic presentation. This is why they refer to this as the quantum abundance system. But they're saying yes. So the golden ones who hold riches beyond imagination, it's not necessarily money and finance, pennies and dollars in the village. It's abundance. It's abundance, all that one needs and more. Riches beyond your imagination. It doesn't mean actual money, coins and notes in the village. It could mean so much. Abundance is the receiving of all that the universe has to offer, which is a free energy, infinite, plentiful system. These individuals in the paradise template, that is what they will experience in their experiential reality. And I know that some of these individuals have experienced this for years. So the 9 went on to say, the paradise system works through this quantum manifestation field. The paradise system works through this quantum manifestation field using their inner technology to break through layers and layers of financial strongholds in the village in order to access the free-flowing 0-point energy fields in the village that will always bring abundance into their reality, which is what I just said. For they shall be in the right place at the right time, and they shall know what to do instinctively and organically in real time in the moment. So this isn't something I can predict or tell you about. It's your knowing of this, that you're in this paradise system and your experiencing of it, your joy for being in it, your gratitude for being in it, your ability to create it. This is allowing you to be in the right place at the right time. And you'll know what to do in the moment, even whilst you are bearing witness to the other side of the polarity in the village. I then said, what should these individuals do? So I'm talking about the golden shining ones, the starseeds, the awakened ones, those that are manifesting the paradise program, the fairies of light, the fae. What should these individuals do? Should they move their assets in the village? Should they take pennies from one piggy bank and put their pennies and little dollar coins into a different piggy bank? Should they buy crystals and gold and silver and other things? Should they invest in some kind of digital funding, some kind of digital penny? What should these people do? There's all these options. So I personally don't give financial advice to the fairies, but this was a question for the 9. So this is the response to my question. Each individual will make different moves, and some shall make no moves, as they're already set up within their own personal quantum abundance structure. The predominant awareness to present here is the continuous communication with the guidance system, aligned intuition, higher self, ascended master collective, or council, in order to bring all into alignment. So that's the answer. The answer is your spirituality. It is your energy field. That's the answer to what to do. Some will do nothing, some will do lots of things, but it's all to do with your own personal energetic system as a beautiful winged fairy or pixie or elf in the bifurcated village. My next question: should people be following these esoteric intermediaries? So they're talking about higher self, ascended master collective, or council. Should people be following these esoteric intermediaries to the God source aspect? Should they not be listening to themselves? I know the answer to this, but it was a rhetorical question to the 9, but I get asked this all the time. So I'm putting this directly to the 9. Should people be following these esoteric intermediaries? Ascended masters, archangels, higher dimensional councils, collective consciousnesses, angels. Should people be following these intermediaries to the God source aspect? Should they not be listening to themselves? And the 9 replied, all that we have presented is the God source aspect and is self. So that is you. That is the God source aspect. That's who you are. These intermediaries are not intermediaries. They're all aspects of self, and they're all aspects of God source. Everything is within you. Everything is connected to that God source. There's no one outside of that, because that's a cohesive, infinite structure. So they ended on, we are the white-winged collective consciousness of 9. So this was all the information I had all ready for my chat with Marina the Mermaid. But obviously we had lots to say and I didn't get to anywhere near the information. So I wanted to bring this out in videos to you. People could see that there was more to say, and lots of people have written to me saying, can you please bring forward the information? I think there was a question I was about to respond to, and then we talked about something else. So people have been asking, but I always intended to bring this forward. I wouldn't be bringing forward a transmission and not share with everyone unless it was completely and utterly personal. So I really hope you have enjoyed this analysis of the 9's information. It's not a subject that I would normally touch. It is tied up completely with our ascension process. The pennies and the dollars in the village, the top bananas and the stormfire, it's all tied up together, all the structures. It's all part of this ascension process. It's not just higher realms and not 3D, it's all of it. So I hope that this has helped. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening, and I'll be back again soon. Lots of love. Take care, everyone. Bye.